before I start this one out, just want to point out that I'm being monitored here in the home. So as I start doing this, probably somebody's going to be sent to either make noise out there, or there's going to be some sort of noise campaign that will start. Maybe in the back here, someone will come out back and start running a leaf blower, something like that. Or they'll be banging upstairs. That's because there's surveillance in the home, and I don't usually record things like this when I'm here, but I'm going to give it a shot today. Okay, so just go through some brief stuff here. Okay, so let's take a look at this character, this communitarian state-funded actor who they refer to as Dan Dix of Pressfortruth. I don't believe that's his real name. I think they just give these actors fake names. They're essentially, military intelligence assets. They're all connected with military intelligence. Most of them are from military families that are also connected with Freemasonry, because Freemasonry and our military are deeply interconnected in Canada. And that's the case all throughout all of the Five Eyes countries, so Canada, Australia, New Zealand, the UK. So I've exposed this individual numerous times before. Now, firstly, let me point out that when you look at these things, there really overall isn't a lot of that can be gained from exposing these people, because by now you must know that most of them are just actors, right? They're just funded by the state. They'll give you a little bit of truth. Some of them will give you more truth than others. Either way, they're steering agents. So within communitarianism, a steering agent is somebody who they'll go out to assume an identity and almost take a narrative and steer it in the direction that the state wants it to be steered in. And to do that, they have to, pretend to be things that they're not really for, in favor of things they're not really for. It's essentially assuming an identity and pushing a narrative that you don't really believe in, because all of them are controlled by the state, and there really is no freedom, essentially. But they're just trying to guide all of these situations into a predetermined outcome. So these situations are a lot more complex than what you see on the outside. Almost all of these major protests that you see in Canada, the US, the UK, they're all staged. So they control both sides of the protests. They orchestrate chaos. They orchestrate these fake clashes. And then they bring in the police, and then this gives them justification due to these orchestrated clashes that they've created. Whichever side they want to portray as the side that is the good side that they want to prevail, that's the side they'll portray in a positive way. The other side, they'll portray them as, violent, mentally unstable, etc., as is the case with these fake Palestinian protesters that they've been in Canada for a number of years now, sending out, the state has been sending out to cause all this chaos intentionally. Obviously, if you just look at a little bit of that material, you can tell that's not something that real protesters would do if they actually believed in a cause. They wouldn't behave that way, okay? So they're funded by the state to do that so that it can reach the predetermined outcome. And that always involves more losses of freedoms, more oppression, more removals of freedoms, bringing in police with automatic rifles everywhere you go, all out of these stage plays that they've set up with these communitarian agents. So that's a bit of a long intro, but just to provide a little bit of background for those who don't know how these operations work, it's much more complex than what you see on the surface. And almost all of them on these sites, almost all of them, these quote-unquote influencers, there's not a lot of people who go out to put this information out just to spread the truth. Most of them are paid agents. Some of them mix in more truth than others. But just to start that out, so of course he's one of these people, and you may say, well, why bother putting this out? I'm just putting it out just to show an example of certain things that the state will do with these agents, right? He's obviously one. You can see him connected with Alex Bill Hicks Jones, going on his show with people who are directly connected. Those people are obviously CIA agents, InfoWars, and they're just there to discredit truthful narratives. He interacts with them directly. He interacts with David Icke. He's hanging out in some videos with David Icke. Luke Radowski of We Are Change, who's a total fraud. There's no way you'd be able to walk up to Jacob Rothschild directly and confront him if you were legitimate. First of all, he's not going to go anywhere without 50 bodyguards around him immediately, so we know that was completely staged. And then when we look at We Are Change, hold on a second here, let me just do something here. I'll show you something else with Luke Rudkowski and We Are Changed. There's no point doing an overall video exposure of them because they're such frauds. You already know they're frauds. But let me just show you with We Are Changed, because obviously, you know, within Masonry and the occult, the importance of symbolism. Let's look at the symbol that We Are Changed have. Well, that right there looks to me like the Kabbalistic tree of life right there, right? When they're exposing Jacob Rothschild, they're showing, you know, the roots growing out, and then they're showing these people with the camera and the bullhorn. The bullhorn thing is another one of the things that they have a lot of these actors. You know, they used to have Mark Dice holding the bullhorn. They have the bullhorn symbol with Rebel News. It's just to let the state know that these are, you know, and other Masons know they're just actors. So the Kabbalistic tree of life with We Are Changed, these are more shills that Dan Dix is associated with. So just to provide some background, I put this video out, 2 years, 1 month ago. It says, the usual lying shills promote the 322 Skull and Bones number Moscow concert hoax as being real, which was a staged event. Again, they're doing these things in Russia, all over the world, these staged events to justify removing freedoms. So these are two of the people here, obviously two of the gatekeepers who they'll use to give a little bit of truth, but then whenever they do one of these events, they have to have these people come out and say, oh, this was real, you know, people died in it. Okay, here's what we have to look at. If they're doing this with things like the Boston bombing and, you know, the Ottawa staged hoax with the fake terror attack where there's an Ottawa police officer openly laughing while looking at the cameras. Yeah, like I said, there's going to be noise, but we'll just work through it for now. Then obviously, you know, if they're doing that consistently, why would they take the risk of setting something up like that if people were really going to be killed? That's a tremendous risk, and it's much easier to just use deceit to stage these things and then have the media push it as real, and then they have these actors, that's their job, is to push it as real and then shame you and say, you know, you're a conspiracy theorist, etc., if you don't believe the official narrative. Now, this just further shows how what a liar and fraud Dan Dix is. He goes out of his way to tell you that the media lies to you all the time, yet suddenly the same media that Dan Dix tells you lies all the time is suddenly telling the truth when it comes to one of these events that they want to push. And that just shows you the double standard that he has, and that he's just a paid liar too. So go into a little bit of this here. I just want to show you something else with Mr. Pressfortruth here. You can see how he's wearing this shirt here that is basically mocking Christianity. He's got like a cartoon Jesus, you know, putting the devil in a headlock. That's just insulting and mocking, and it's turning it into, you know, this cartoonish foolishness. And if you think this guy's in favor of Christianity, you're just, you know, he's just an actor. And they do that so they can deceive the Christian audience. And so again, he's just mocking Christianity there by wearing that. And there he is with Bill Hicks there. Whether you want to believe that's Bill Hicks or not, I believe it is. You know, some say it's not. I believe that there's ample evidence to reach the conclusion that that's who that is. And anyway, he's on the Bill Hicks comedy show there because that's what they do. They take these people and, you know, they use comedians' intelligence operations all the time just to discredit the material, just to have somebody who can act goofy and act, you know, eccentric and take real material and discredit it. So he's there. We see him with Ike. We see him with Bill Hicks here, or call him Alex Jones, whatever you want to call him. He's there with him. He's connected with Rudkowski, all these shills. And there he is wearing the military camouflage of the Canadian Communitarian state, the same clothing that they have all of these paid stalkers and provocateurs who set up street theater and follow me around and harass me, get told to wear. So I guess that's just a coincidence there, too, that he's wearing this military attire. And they put that out there with these people who they control just to, you know, to rub it in your face, partially that it's a military operation, and also to show you that they control them like slaves. They get told what to wear, they get told what to say, and it's all acting. So we'll just start it out with that, and we'll listen to a little bit of the stuff that this communitarian state-funded actor says in this clip here. So let me also just point out that I'm recording this with my camera glasses. So if it seems like there's a lot of movement and whatnot, it's just because I'm recording it with the glasses here. It's easier that way. I don't have I have a screen recorder, but I don't have a way to get the audio through that well because I don't have a microphone or anything. So I'm just doing it this way with my camera glasses. So I'm sorry if there's a little bit of movement. hopefully it captures most of the screen. I'm sitting fairly close to it. I'll move back a little bit here so we can. Anyway, let's go. So this is Dan Dix of Pressfortruth saying, this was not a staged Trump assassination, but they'll still use it to take your rights. Okay. So let's see what this is.
I've been exposing real psyops and false flags and government lies for over 20 years.
Yeah, which real false flag and government psyop did Dan Dix expose? I mean, he spoke a little bit of truth about COVID, but beyond that, what were the ones that he really exposed? I don't know. I guess maybe he could update us on that, because he certainly hasn't said anything about Sandy Hook, which was one of the most blatantly obvious ones ever. He would have you believe that's real. I didn't see Dan Dix say anything about the Boston bombing, which was also provably exposed as a total fraud. And when you look at that, it can only lead you to one conclusion, that if there's that many people taking part in it, the police, the fire department, hundreds of people posing in roles and pretending to be wounded when they're really not, setting it up like a film script. There's a lot of planning that goes into that. So apparently he missed that, or he's going to tell you that's real. But I don't know of too many psyops that Dan Dix has actually been exposing, other than the stuff where they'll send him to Bilderberg, or these places where God knows how he gets there, when, you pretty much have to be connected to get to those places. I know that, he'll tell you, well, they'll let anyone stand outside. I don't think they will. I think you have to be pretty much connected to get near those places, because all you see with those Bilderberg situations are people like Rebel News going in, or people who are already intelligence agency connected shills, okay? So recently he recorded another one from Bilderberg where he went down there and stood outside and interviewed no one. There was like 3 or 4 people that came out, and he tried to walk up to a couple of them, and they just more or less ignored him. And then he still uploaded the video. So, I mean, you got to wonder where he's always got money to travel to all these places. Oh, and let's also point out that while Dan Dix tells you he's been exposing real psyops, he was also down in Mexico in Puerto Vallarta. Because, again, like I said, he's just this citizen journalist, so he'd have you believe. Yet he's always got money to fly to all these places. And I guess he'd tell you it's just because of his audience donating to him. Yeah, if you believe that, I got some swampland in Florida to sell you. But anyway, he's down there because the reason they had him down there is they want to push this lie about Mexican drug cartels and that they're the problem and all this. And so much of that is obviously blatantly staged. So they had him down there for a staged event in Mexico where all he showed, though, during the whole time was a car that looked like it had been set on fire, that looked like something they would set up on a film set. And that's what he showed. He had no evidence of any actual cartel activity or anything like that. And then while he's down there, he meets up with another Freemason-funded government agent, Shill, who plays the Max Eigen character. Again, it's not a real name. They give all these actors aliases. They can change their names. They give them different identities. I'm also going to show you footage, not to digress too much here, but I'm also going to show you footage of a YouTube channel that I believe, now this is just my opinion, you can mock it and laugh at it if you want to, but I think it's Dan Dix playing another role, a comedic role, where they've got him in the little bit of a CIA costume where they put a little bit of a disguise on the face, and he's just playing a comedic, goofy role as... I think it's in BC as well, where he actually lives. Anyway, let's listen to what he has to say here. So he said, just to start out, just to get back to it, he's exposed so many real psyops, and he's exposed real psyops because those of us who are talking about these things that are clearly fake, when there's clear evidence that these things are staged, and they're even mocking you and laughing in your face by turning it into comedy, because they know there's people who are going to expose it. So that's why they had Caroline Leavitt do that 666 hand signal and say shots will be fired. It's a strategy to take these things. They know people are already awake to this, and they're going to, as soon as they do one of these psyops, people are going to expose it online. So they're going to try and, turn it into comedy and put that aspect to it. So Dan Dix is going to say that because she said that, and people pointed out that that corresponds with what happened, that somehow, it's nothing more than conspiracy. And his argument is flimsy and doesn't hold any weight. Let's listen.
This area, and I've called out plenty of real conspiracies. That's why I called it Pressfortruth. And so
yeah,
I'm going to do exactly
That's why the Canadian Communitarian stayed, and CSIS, who set you up with the channel, told you to call the channel that.
It triggers the hell out of a big chunk of my audience. So, trigger warning, I'm going to explain why I don't think this White House Correspondents' Dinner shooting was staged. And yeah, that's probably...
How many events, first of all, let's get back to this. How many events has Dan Dix actually told you were staged? I don't know of too many. I even think he said that ridiculous fake, film set acting skit where they had a bunch of Vikings running into the White House a few years ago. Did he say, he might have called that one out, which is something anyone could see. How many of these real false flags has he really exposed? I can't recall many.
Probably going to upset.
What I can recall is him always coming out, him and people like Styx Hexenhammer, who they tell you is a former Satanist. When they say that, what they really mean is, because everything's inversion with these intelligence agency assets, practicing Satanist. And of course, Styx Hexenhammer writes all these books, translating Aleister Crowley's writings and all these satanic books. And then they just have him go on and act like a regular guy and talk about pointless fake politics, just to give him a platform, right? And his job is to lie and push fake events as being real. And then they bring it up casually in discussion the same way Dan Dix does. The difference is Dan Dix does give you some real truth about things like COVID and stuff like that, whereas Styx Hexenhammer, he's just going to push, his job is just to push the fake political system as if it's real, when he's way too smart to not know that it isn't. So we can establish that most of these people aren't just dumb, they're knowingly lying, right? They're smart enough to know they're lying.
But for me, the truth has always been more important than views.
Yeah, sure, that's why... That's why you're always asking for money from people, right? Okay.
And just a quick reminder, guys, I am not pro-Trump. I've been exposing Donald Trump as a tool of the global elite since 2016.
Who hasn't been? Who hasn't been?
This video is in no way, shape, or form me trying to defend him. I'm simply debunking these dumb as rocks conspiracy theories.
Right, dumb as rocks conspiracy theories. So when they bring someone out, right, to mock you, when the elites... It's well known that they do these things, and we see these same patterns over and over again of them using mockery to laugh in your face when they're going to plan these events, just like they did with COVID, where they put on these videos on all the news channels saying there were 33 cases in 33 countries over and over again to mock you. That's not a strategy that they use, right, Dan? That's just silly conspiracy. And what Dan Dix is pushing here is exactly what the establishment wants to push. So that's what they use steering agents like Mr. Dix, which is, I don't even think that's his name.
Because some people are taking them way too far. And at the end of the day...
Way too far. Okay, so we look at the material and we judge it based upon what they've presented. If what they've presented indicates to us that it's a fraud, then it's a fraud. We look at the evidence. How is looking at the evidence taking it way too far?
The truth actually matters.
Well, that's true, and that's why they have you out there to disrupt the truth. And that's what it is. It's a military operation to disrupt the truth online. Going back to the real purpose of, quote-unquote, InfoWars. Right, Dan?
Oh, I'm going to jump right into it. But
let's do that. Just before he does. He always needs your money, right? Just like Rebel News, just like Tommy, just like all these people. They care about the truth so much that they need you to give them money so they can go on another vacation to Puerto Vallarta to soak up the sun and cover another staged event and lie to you about that.
Please check me out at subscribestar.com.
And then again, they push this whole thing with him that he's been censored over and over again, so therefore he must be legit. They censor these Shills all the time, of course, to deceive you and make you think that they have, to try to lend them some credibility. Because occasionally he does speak some truth, like he's done some things on MK Ultra and things like that they will give you. But of course, his real purpose is to steer you towards certain narratives that the state wants to push. And that's what they use these communitarian agents for. And that's a key right there, is communitarianism. And most of these shills won't touch that word with a 10-foot pole. Okay? So that's very important, because if you understand communitarianism, you understand how they use so many people to lie and deceive in these methods, in these operations. As well, if you understand these organized stalking routines that they run. I'm not talking about gang stalking, a fake term that was created by the CIA to discredit real people. I'm not talking about the crap that guy, the guy from Australia who posts videos where he goes in his car every 2 days and just films everyone in sight and says everyone there's. No, I'm talking about real targeting, okay? And that goes on, but they use the gang stalking narrative to discredit people who are really dealing with this, like me. And I've documented these things for 5 years, okay? So let's go ahead here with Dan. And again, that comes back to communitarianism. You'll notice how that guy from Australia as well is now suddenly putting communitarianism in a lot of the titles to his videos since I've been doing it, because they have that guy mimic me. He used to share my videos years ago, a few years back, and I even at times had communicated with him. I knew he was kind of a shill, but I just, he was putting my material out there, and he has a big channel. Anyway, I'm not going to digress and go too much into that. You know who I mean, the Zionist Communist Takeover channel. That guy's definitely there just to discredit people who are really being targeted, okay? We'll get back. We won't waste too much time on him, though, because he's not worth it.
Pressfortruth, where you can sign up for a monthly reoccurring contribution. It only takes
don't forget to do
seconds
that.
to do so.
He needs your money for another vacation in Puerto Vallarta with Max Eigen, okay? He'll meet up with Max Eigen down there, and they'll have a few drinks on your dime. And then they'll film an old burnt-out car and tell you that the Mexican drug cartels are real because they filmed an old burnt-out car or found a car on fire as a stage prop. So as well, I don't mean to keep cutting out here, but the Mexican drug cartel narrative is very important because a lot of the videos I've been putting out, they're literally putting that out to try to discredit things I've said about CSIS and the RCMP and, the Five Eyes intelligence services, including MI5 in the UK, being the real ones who work to ensure that drugs flow freely throughout our countries, as well as the CIA being admittedly involved in that in general, going all the way back to the 60s with the promotion of LSD, which they've admitted to themselves. Okay.
I would like to contribute to my efforts. That is definitely a great
Okay, get on with it. If you want to contribute to his efforts and send him on another vacation in Puerto Vallarta while he lies to you, feel free to do so.
Who spent the last decade mainlining corporate media propaganda and NGO-funded rage bait.
Okay, so he's going to give you a little bit there by talking about NGOs, which come into communitarianism. But is he going to go deeper and tell you about that Canada is a communitarian country and how these NGOs control everything in the country and how they've imposed community policing and community guidelines and going so far as to tell people what they're going to do, what they're going to wear, and if you don't go along with it, you're ostracized from the community? No, he's not. He's just going to give you little fragments.
Until he snaps.
Because he knows people aren't totally stupid. Some of this information's out there. But he's got to keep you pointed in the direction that the state wants.
That's right, guys. The shooter was a registered Democrat. He even left behind a manifesto.
Well, there he goes again, pushing the Democrat and Republican, the red and the blue that Freemasonry always wants you to divide the public. It must be a political situation, Dan, right? Dan conveniently hardly ever tells you that all of these politicians, including every prominent politician and every important person in the news media in Canada, is connected with Freemasonry. Why doesn't he do that? I think you know why.
Proves beyond a doubt that he was completely...
There was one video once where Dan filmed the front of a Masonic lodge to try to get credibility, and but he never really goes into any depth about the total control that Masonry has. Even if you want to have a business, a successful business in Canada, you're an entrepreneur, you better join a lodge. And that's a fact. And people know that's a fact too, people who are involved in it, right? And that's why they managed to control all these people, even the Blue Lodge Masons, and keep them quiet through materialism. You want to have a decent life, you're going to go along with the program. Otherwise, it's going to be hard times, unfortunately, for you, especially if you're not a part of this communitarian system, especially if you haven't signed on and made your deal to become a citizen spy, right, Dan?
Radicalized by
and
the media.
he did that years ago because a lot of these people like Dan come from families who have been in this system for generations. So.
Words. And I'm no longer willing to permit a pedophile, rapist, and traitor to coat my hands with his crimes. Well, to be completely honest, I was no longer willing a long time ago. But this is the first real opportunity I've had to do something about it.
Okay, so don't you think that would be a clever thing to do, to take that narrative about Trump, the Trump pedo narrative about with the Epstein files, much of which is fictionalized, but not saying that these things aren't going on, because they are. You'll notice that there's no mention of Freemasonry with regards to the Epstein files, even though most of the people who they're talking about being involved in it, in these things, are all Masons, like Trump, right? So wouldn't it be clever to take that narrative? This is something that the state would plan. They know there's people talking online about Trump being a pedo and being involved with Masonry, etc. Take that narrative and then make it seem like they're these crazy, violent people who are targeting people because of online conspiracies to make it seem like, oh, Trump isn't any of these things. Did you ever think of that, Dan? I think that might have been part of the motive there, but you're not going to dig deeper, and you're not going to challenge people to think.
There it is, folks. Straight from the horse's mouth. 10 years of hearing that Trump is a fascist Nazi, pedophile, rapist,
he is. He is most of. I don't know. He is a pedophile, and he's definitely a high-level Freemason. What do they get involved in at the higher levels of Freemasonry, Dan? You won't talk about that. Why not? Why not?
Finally bore fruit. The same
Yeah, you've exposed so many psyops. What psyops have you exposed, Dan? Other than a bunch of stage skits, what the psyops that Dan Dix claims he's exposed? One of them, I guess, is that Francis Widdowson stage play that I already exposed as totally fraudulent, where even her name is a reference to the phrase that Masons are supposed to make in court. Is there no help for the poor widow's son? Again, they put that out just to mock you. That's what these people involved in the occult do when they plan these psyops. They laugh and mock at the people who they know are awake, because they know there's some people who are going to see that, and then they'll just dismiss it as conspiracy, right, Dan? So he's involved in these things, and he's telling you these are psyops that he's exposed by participating in a staged skit with this Francis Widdowson thing that was obviously set up. You can tell she's working for the state. Look at the name they give her. You could tell it was orchestrated the same way all these staged Canadian events are, with these actors and these fake confrontations. And of course, Dan was there, and he'll tell you that was a psyop he exposed. Sure.
That's been screaming existential doom 24/7 didn't just criticize Trump. They built an entire alternate universe.
Well, yeah, that's true. They have been doing that as well, so that they can blame the Democrat side when these things happen and keep the two sides at their throats, at each other's throats, to make them think it's a political problem when it's a Masonic problem, and it's these criminal families, the Rothschilds, the Crown, who are controlling these puppets doing these things.
Taking him out was some type of moral duty, and I'm not saying...
Well, here's another thing that ties into that, what Dan's talking about there. There's an interesting thing. I talked about this a year and a half ago. How it ties in, and I know there are other, I'm not saying I'm the only person who's talked about this, but when I was younger, I used to read a lot of Stephen King's novels. I don't like him at all now. He's a terrible hack author, but back then I used to read a lot of his novels. And in looking back now, I see how much predictive programming there was in so much of Stephen King's material. The Stand, if you look at that, that's all. If you're familiar with his novel, The Stand, if you're not, look into it. It clearly predicts the COVID situation. And it has this figure who's like an antichrist type of figure, the Randall Flagg character, who it's almost like an apocalyptic re-envisioning of certain elements of the Book of Revelation. And they tie it in with obvious predictive programming of the scandemic. So there's that, and then there's Stephen King's The Dead Zone, which predicts this individual who goes and tries to assassinate some person who's presented as this psychopath politician. Very similar to the situation with Trump, right?
So, saying that he isn't some of those things. What I am saying is that someone out there got pissed about it enough to take matters into their own hands.
No, well, this is where you're lying, and I would say this is where you're wrong. If I thought you actually believed that, I don't think you actually believe that. I think you're smart enough to know better, and that's why we know you're lying, because you're not a moron, right? You'd have to be a moron to have studied these things as long as you have, and to not see through that. So that's what they want to push as being the narrative, to do that. But he didn't actually do these things because it would be far too difficult for them to continue to do these things if they were actually having people make real attempts on other people's lives. That would be a risk for the people involved. Why would they put their own agents at risk? No one would want to work for them if they have a chance, there's a possibility of being killed. They're not going to put people who they hire to stage these things, or these puppet politicians, at risk. It's illogical. And especially since we already have concrete proof of the media staging these things over and over and over again. It's far easier for them to do it that way, and they know that there's enough of the public that are going to accept that narrative anyway.
And he decided that bullets or the answer.
No, that's the lie that you want to push for your Freemason masters and for your the people who give you these
It's
scripts.
almost like...
And it's important to them, too. This is the thing. It's very important to them. These gatekeepers are important. People like Dan Dix and others, Mark Dice and people like that, although he gives a little bit more truth than Mark Dice. They're important because they have enough of an audience that when they do say these things, there are going to be enough people who are going to be dissuaded from looking further into this and finding out that they are actually staging most of these events. And that's what they don't want. Because once people wake up to the true deception, but then again, even if they do, here's what it comes back to. They control enough of the population, and they have enough people online who they pay just to lie, to push the narrative. If you look in the comment sections on YouTube or BitChute or any of these sites, it's almost all fake. It's almost all people who are just there to push a certain narrative. On this site, it's more people who are paid to promote violence and say stupid things so that people who are speaking out in any credible way will be seen as being associated with actors who they put in who are acting crazy. And that's why I closed the comment section on this site. And, it's not real interactions for the most part anyway. If I'm missing out on communicating with some people with good intentions, that's unfortunate. But I know how many people they have who they send in, and that the intelligence agencies need to control these narratives. And if they can't do that, they have to, there's other ways they can push these agendas through either way. But these people serve a purpose by giving you some truth, but then when they do one of these false flags, they're going to shame you if you question it, if you look deeper into it.
Relentlessly calling someone Hitler might inspire a few unhinged, violent people to treat him like Hitler.
Well, that's true too. That's a valid point. But first of all, we got to look at the facts here. How would it be possible for any unhinged or violent person to get even close to somebody like that with a gun, with the type of security and sophisticated technology they have now to spot that? They'd be able to stop that instantly if it was real. They have technology to monitor me in my own home now. And the Americans have the most, sophisticated technology anywhere. There's no way you're going to get somebody with a gun like that getting even near the place before they take them down quickly. And you're in a surveillance state now. So we know that much, and we know they'd be able to stop him for sure if that was real.
Who could have possibly seen that coming?
And you actually wrote about this, and it was a great
buffet. So first up is this clip of Caroline Levitt.
It'll be funny. It'll be entertaining. There will be some shots fired.
Here's what's interesting. Here's what's another reason why I'm covering this clip. I think they're kind of the intelligence agencies who tell Dan Dix, particularly, I think he's connected with CSIS, personally. I think they, give a lot of scripts to these actors who they use, and obviously they're connected with military intelligence. So whether it's CSIS or whether it's just whoever's giving him the scripts, I believe they're connected to it anyway. They know I put this video up, right? Because it's blatantly obvious. Now, I'm not going to go through and do a play-by-play of analyzing every nuance of it, because we already know it's fake. They do these things over and over again. If a media organization, these organizations lie to you 999 times, are we going to believe what they say on the 1000th time? I mean, that's just basic logic. So he's going to try to say that because I put this up, I think this is indirectly directed at me. That's another reason why I'm responding to this and just tearing this fool apart, because that's all he is. He's just an actor. And let's go from here.
Tonight in the room, so everyone should tune in. It's going to be really great. I'm looking forward to hearing it.
Whoa! Did you hear that, guys? She must have been in on it. Except that's called comedy roast lingo.
No, it's what it is. It's called mocking the proletariat, mocking the Goya, mocking the people who know what's going on, which is something that these occult organizations do over and over and over again. And we can prove that by just giving basic examples of the 33s over and over and over again on the news to mock people, okay? So that's what it is right there.
Every hack comedian who has ever stepped up to that podium uses the same tired phrase before they start ripping into someone. It's a
Yeah, and why would they have focused on that specific phrase to put it out in the controlled media if they didn't want you to see that before the staged event? Because they know that there's enough people who already know that this is staged, so they're just turning it into comedy. That's what it is. And also, because we know that intelligence agencies routinely use comedy as a means of almost discrediting these situations. That's why they bring people like, Sam Tripoli, whether or not you want to believe that's Bill. I believe Alex Jones is Bill Hicks. There's others who don't believe that. That's fine. That's your opinion. Owen Benjamin. Why do you think they bring those people in and have them all suddenly start to pretend to be involved in truth movements? And because the CIA sets them up, and they always interview the same circles of people involved in Masonry, just like James Dellingpole, who's another one who openly admitted he's got the same type of show where he only interviews this circle of Masons. And they basically called him out in the one show where he's talking about his sexual attraction to like a 13-year-old boy. Now that openly outs him there, and he admitted it, and he didn't back down from saying what he said in his book about that. And there's still Masons going on his show, even though he's admitted to that. So that tells you that whole circle are a bunch of frauds. It's just acting, and all of these people are connected with these circles, with the intelligence agencies. And if you're not in one of these circles, you get no promotion.
Guys,
and that's people who speak real truth, who aren't going to be controlled. That's who they want to get rid of before we go into this new system, and they're doing a good job of shutting those voices down now.
It's not a secret coded admission of a false flag.
No, it's not. It's not. They only mock you with these things all the time, over and over again, and they did it all throughout the scamdemic, and we see evidence of them doing this. And Michael Hoffman openly talks about in his books how these occult people get great pleasure out of mocking the people who are awake. They can throw it right out there in your face, and nothing will happen because they're so powerful.
Like as if she just slipped up live on national television. That's
It's not that she slipped up. It was scripted, and you know that fully well. You're just a paid liar, and that's all there is to it.
Next,
No. What's absolutely ridiculous is you coming on and attempting to insult people's intelligence with these situations where we know they do these things over and over again, and it's a pattern that we see utilized, and these occult people get a great deal of satisfaction from mocking those who know what they're doing, because it helps to create a further sense of helplessness and demoralization.
The shooter was wearing an IDF shirt.
Yeah, well, you don't think they told him to wear that? He's an actor. Of course, they tell you to wear a military camouflage shirt because you're a part of the Communitarian state. So they're telling you what to wear too, buddy. Stop the lying. They tell you don't if they pay him to put on a shirt with whatever G.I. Joe on it, he'll put that on. Whatever they give him, he just puts it on. He's an actor, just like you.
Reminded the whole thing. Yeah, about that, the picture flying around is pure AI slop.
Yeah, well, of course, he doesn't want you to think that the Mossad would have anything to do with planning things like that, so he would say that. Now, maybe that is AI slop, but who do you think would put that out to try to discredit it, right? Obviously,
one
they
of
would.
the sharpest, most elite forces on Earth. They don't dispatch some clown Naruto running towards a security checkpoint. They're much more professional and sophisticated than that, and they sure as hell don't have...
Well, they do take part in staging fake events over and over again. We can establish that. There's enough evidence.
Their operative advertising who they work for by wearing the team jersey. Plus, newsflash, guys, Israel loves Trump. They're not trying to off him. They're popping champagne.
Well, that's part of the Psyop. They're trying to create confusion there. They're trying to create confusion. We know that already.
Over him. They don't want him dead. They want him in office. So this conspiracy...
Yeah, so he can continue the act. Again, all predicted in the Illuminati card game, and all of these things previously planned, pre-planned.
He isn't just wrong, it's retarded. But wait, Dan, what about the guy holding up a card as a signal? Yeah, the dude's a mentalist. He was doing a trick for Caroline Levitt where he guessed her unborn baby's name, and he got it right. And that's why she and everyone else around her were...
Yeah, like the whole place there isn't controlled, and like they don't pre-plan these things before. Obviously, if you're going to do a psychological operation, you're going to go through it before, you're going to pre-plan it, you're going to go through the motions before to prepare for what you're going to do. So it's going to come off like that, and they're going to want to make it come off like it's natural. So.
Or losing their minds reacting to it. But sure, let's pretend a professional magician performing at a black tie dinner is actually passing coded assassination instructions to the shooter.
Well, again, that's part of the psyop to discredit the whole thing. So that's what...
Clown world, my friends. And then there's the ex-CIA guy claiming that it was obviously staged because J.D. Vance was rushed out before Trump.
The story stinks to high heaven. This is not just my opinion.
Yeah, well, they're going to bring these people up because they already know. They already know that there's going to be people going online right away to say it's fake. So they have to have their own people take control of that narrative. And they're going to have them talk about it first, the same way they do with everything. It's a common tactic that they use. So they want to make sure that their agents are in place to talk about this, and then they're going to promote them so they get exposure, so that anyone who isn't controlled gets no exposure when they talk about it.
I've got a buddy who ran Reagan's...
The president and the vice president, so that both leaders can't be taken out at once. That's standard operating procedure. The timing had nothing to do with priority. It came down to Vance's proximity to the door and normal evacuation sequencing. It wasn't suspicious, guys. It was textbook. And then we've got the magic...
Well, it was textbook for what you do if you're planning a psychological operation and an acting skit. We've already established with the last fake Trump assassination attempt, where they had all these paid actors and the one guy's still standing up there waving and laughing while they're shooting, that pretty much everyone in there was controlled and was a paid actor of the state. So if they're going to do it that way, and when they do it once, why would they not use the same method when they do it every time? That's illogical to say.
Martinez tweet that predicted the name of the shooter, Cole Allen.
Well, okay, let me also tell you, give me a second here. Okay, so right here, so you can see here, I posted this on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, short time after that, and again, you can see another blatantly staged fake Trump assassination attempt, nothing more than Masonic scripted theater. The name of the supposed quote-unquote shooter, aka actor, Cole Allen, just happens to be, again, 33 in numerology. Now, if you saw that once, okay, you could dismiss it. Over and over and over again, you're finding these same names that just happen to add up to 33 or 666 or whatever. Now, that alone doesn't prove, because the name was 33, but it is something that we see used over and over again with these actors that they use. And that name, Cole Allen, is 33, okay?
This was posted in December of 2023.
Yeah, and I wonder if they just told someone, it's got that frog logo, the cartoon. Obviously, these are just people who they control online, and they do put a bit of programming out.
From an account
there you go,
with
Cole
0
Allen.
followers, it's following no one. It only has this one post with 0 interaction.
Right, and pretty much everything. If you've been on X for any extended period of time, the interactions on there are even faker than on YouTube or any of these other platforms. It's mostly just agents. That's who you're interacting with. Bots and agents who are pretending to believe things that they don't really believe and putting on a show. Unfortunately, that's the truth. You're not interacting with many real people there. On my X, Twitter, I know it's mostly fake, but I still use it just to document the stalking and harassment activities. I put real documentation of the things that are going on, dates and times and everything when these things are happening. And as you can tell, all these quote-unquote fake targeted individuals, which I don't use that term anymore. I used to use it years ago. But I found out they're all completely fake online. And, when you post real evidence of those things consistently for years, and you get almost no support from these people calling themselves quote-unquote targeted individuals, that's just a psyop too. So I just basically use it to post documentation of these harassment campaign activities, which I might add is another thing that Dan Dix won't go near, even though he knows it's going on in this country. Which tells you even more what a psychopath he is. I believe he's smart enough to know these things are going on, and that CSIS and the police and others are terrorizing people for speaking the truth, and he'll only cover it when it's people who are paid actors, who are in these circles tied to the military and Freemasonry, people like Lauren Southern from these, communitarian families, who are just state-funded actors. He'll cover it then, but he'll ignore. He will never interact. He doesn't even interact with people who aren't a part of the system. Go on X and try and interact with Dan Dix. And I've tagged him in posts and said, called him out as a fraud and all this. He just pretends that you're not there. I've put videos out on BitChute. He ignores it. He won't deal with any of the facts I use. Instead, he'll just go on and thumb his nose at you and mock you and say you're stupid if you think the shooting was fake because Leavitt said this. But there's nothing to back up, no substance to anything he says. He's been exposed as a charlatan years ago.
JPL, and there was
so
a guy.
It really, to me, is it worth putting much time into exposing these people? Typically, it's not. But I just wanted to point that out because the intelligence services were kind of having him direct that at me to say, you're stupid if you think this was real. And I think I've provided enough here to thoroughly refute that and just to point out further what a fraud Dan Dix is. Now, don't forget to give him money so he can go down for another vacation in Mexico for more staged fake non-existent cartel activity and meet up with Max Eigen for margaritas on the beach, okay?